Welcome to Genius Hub, the right destination for human capacity development, skills acquisition, and empowerment. Genius Hub is a human capital development organization with offices across Nigeria and Africa, and with a strong presence in Lagos, Kano, Edo, and Rwanda. With a vision to improve lives and empower knowledge, Genius Hub prides itself in providing services and training to over 17,000 persons in over 49 TVET entrepreneurship, employability, and digital skills such as basic literacy skills, graphics design, website development, digital marketing, filmmaking, and many more. Genius Hub is committed to promoting MSME growth and visibility through incubation, acceleration, startup development services, as well as tech-driven interventions, including training and capacity building in digital marketing, basic digital literacy, product photography, social media marketing, financial management, search engine optimization, and more. Through NYTV, Genius Hub reaches out to train aspiring creatives in the areas of photography, cinematography, editing, lighting, and many more.
I don't know if your video is on, but you have to show us your beautiful face for a while now.
I don't even know how to turn on my...
Okay, your video is actually on. So welcome everyone here. Yes, it's on.
Okay.
We're super excited today to bring you a very special guest for today. Gracie Mary Omoyele Victor is now a compound name. She's going to be delving very straight to that. And she is a special guest for today, because we're going to be talking about the role of persons with disability in driving economic inclusive growth. That's what we're going to be talking about. And we brought Mary here to speak with us today because of her passion, because of the mileage she has gained. And so she's an authority. She's someone who can lend her voice, and she can speak to this issue that we are talking about. Mary, when I met you, you taught me something that I have never forgotten. You said to me, persons with disability are not a homogeneous species. I have never forgotten that statement. Never, never, never. And anywhere I go, I try to carry that your fire to say to them, persons with disability are not a homogeneous species. It's not a one-size-fits-all. So they deserve not to be treated like that. So today we are going to be talking about why we should not treat persons with disability like charity cases, but that we should treat them as economic actors. My name is Obehi Okweyabele. You are welcome to Genius Hub webinar series. Our chief host is Isimeme White, the CIO of Genius Hub, and this is a Genius Hub sponsored event, and our guest is already here. But before Mary lends her voice, I'd like to quickly just read out her beautiful profile. Born in the early 90s, in the vibrant town of Lagos, Mary, a human resource practitioner and humanitarian committed to advocating to the rights of the protected groups in the society. Upon colorful graduation from the Loyola Jesuit College, Abuja, she holds a Bachelor of Law from the prestigious Babcock University and was admitted to the Nigerian bar as a barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria in 2015. Mary commenced her legal profession at YC and co-legal practitioners, notary, public, and arbitrators in Abuja immediately after her call to bar in 2015, and soon gained the admiration of her boss and colleague, as the pioneer and the only lady with disability virtual impairment in the company, challenging stereotypes and stepping on to higher precedents. After 8 rigorous years of dedication service to the law firm, and upon her high recommendation, Mary was employed in the Niger Delta Power Holding Company as a human resource personnel, where she is elated to build a human resource career alongside her legal profession. Mary efficaciously wears many hats. In addition to her day job, she volunteers as the Global Secretary of the Network of Women with Disability, a global network of organizations of persons with disability led by women with disability. In this capacity, she has featured and led advocate sensitization programs, policy developments, and implementation programs, all geared towards the inclusion of women and persons with disability in the society. Some of these interventions include National Committee on the Disability Bill, access to justice for persons with disability, and access to employment for persons with disability. In partnership with ROLAC British Council and Site Savers International, respectively, inclusive family planning in collaborations with Site Savers International and other consortium partners. Accelerate action for the elimination of child labor in Africa in partnership with the International Labour Organization, the Employment Bureau of the Nigerian Bar Association, the Aladdin Committee on the Review of the Constitution, and I can go on and on and on and on. You can see that we have a giant here today. Okay, so the ability life initiative, etc. Mary has a passion for philanthropy and advocacy. Her passion is partly inspired by her uncommon story as a victim of an extremely traumatic experience of physical abuse, which claimed her optical sight at age 7. Hence, she's very committed to building and sustaining a society where inclusivity is not just talk, but deed. Married to her soulmate in November 2023. Congratulations once again. And supremely supported by him, they bettered and co-founded the MaVictor Enable Foundation, their channel to institutionalize her phenomenal service to humanity, which she began years ahead. At the foundation, she leads a team of passionate minds who come together to advocate for the rights, inclusion, and improvement of the living standards of the young, women, children, and persons with disability. Mary has stood on several platforms, and now we can say she is also on Genius Hub webinar as a platform to inspire and motivate her audience. Leveraging her life experiences, she strongly believes that she is geared to grace. For her, excellence is non-negotiable. If it must be done at all, then it must be done. And I present to you the one and only beautiful Mary par excellence. Mary, I just read out your beautiful profile. But
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Can you see me though?
We can see you very well.
All right. All right.
We can see your beautiful face. So, Mary, we just want you to still tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's not hear it from my voice. Let's hear it from your voice.
Okay. Thank you so much, Obehi and the Genius Help for hosting me on this very prestigious program. My name is MaryVictor Magaji, formerly known as Mary Musa. I am a legal practitioner, a human resources practitioner, and the humanitarian that is particularly dedicated to advocating for the vulnerable groups in the society, especially persons with disabilities. I, well, not much to say, I think. I am. I am a lawyer, like I said earlier. I worked at a law firm for 8 years, and after that, I'm now working in the Niger Delta Power Holding Company, and I am married, recently married to my soulmate, and together we co-found the Mavic Enable Inclusive Foundation. And I have a very beautiful dog in the house that will not let me rest. She's been asking me to carry her up for you all to see.
Do you know I was going to ask you, Mary, what about your dog? I was going to really sincerely ask
She
after
will
this
not
dog.
let me rest. Since I've been talking,
I,
she's been pulling my
I,
legs that I should
I
carry her
didn't know
up.
that this dog wanted. I didn't know that this dog really wanted to show face.
I'm
Okay.
telling you, she has been disturbing me since. I need to take her out of the room. She has been disturbing me seriously. Go, 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 go. I'm busy. Yeah. So that's it basically. That's it. Hello? Uh-oh.
Hello. So you have a
Okay.
very inspiring story, because reading out your profile just now, you said that you went through physical abuse, very traumatic physical abuse. And I know that
Yeah.
over the years, you have been through a lot, through healing process, through the traumatic experience, and now you have poised and dedicated your life into
Yeah.
uplifting those who have gone through the same road. And
Yeah.
so now talking about the role of persons with disability in driving inclusive growth, what do you have to say? Are persons with disability, should they be treated as liabilities? Should they be treated as charity cases?
Okay. To start with, again, thank you. I believe this is a very important topic to be discussing at this very critical moment in our nation's economy. There's a lot going on, and we cannot be in denial that we are in desperate need of whatever can upshoot and move our economy upward and forward. And so I consider this a very important topic to enlighten us, to educate us, and to expose us to the potentials and potentialities that we are probably missing out on, as a country. So I'd like to start with data, because data is very important. Data cannot be disputed, and data is evidence, right? So, according to the World Bank, right, there are 1 billion persons with disabilities across the world. 80% of these people live in. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well, and I was just
Okay.
responding to that data.
Oh, okay. Yes, exactly. And then we have 80% of these people living in developing countries, like in the continent of Africa. And then in Africa, particularly, there are about 80 million persons with disabilities that's in West Africa, across the West African countries. Now, 22 million of these people are youth below the age of 35. Now, these are staggering statistics, if you'd ask me. In Nigeria alone, we have over 30 million persons with disabilities. Actually, according to the World Bank in 2010, they said we had 25 million persons with disabilities in Nigeria. But between 2010 and now is 14 years, and you and I know that disability is not just an accident away, but disability could be as a result of your health or lifestyle conditions, whatever. Disability is not so difficult to acquire in today's world. And 14 years, therefore, is too much for the data to still be stagnant at 25 million. So, according to the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, they said that we roughly have over 30 million persons with disabilities. But with all the insecurities that have been going on, the maiming, the blast, and all of these things, we know that we probably have more. And then we also know that in Africa, there are many countries that are not even up to 25 million. So, this is to tell you that if we have over 30 million persons with disabilities only in Nigeria, we have the numerical strength to form a nation. Right. Now, if we're going to be talking about the contribution of persons with disabilities to economic growth, especially in Nigeria, we're going to be talking about diversity. I work as a human resource practitioner. I'm a member of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management. And I know that one key thing that we try to engage in today's world is what we call DEI. And DEI simply means diversity, equity, and inclusion. But then when we talk about diversity into in today's businesses, you would normally hear things like gender, like youth inclusion. You'd hear things like race inclusion for multinational companies and transnational companies and all that. And then you even hear things now like LGBT inclusion, and all sort of inclusions. But unfortunately, you barely hear about disability inclusion in workplaces and in economic development. Why? It's because many employers actually think that persons with disabilities cannot contribute to the social development of their company or largely to the economic growth and development of their company and the nation. You understand that? However, guess what? In a recent research that was conducted, it was discovered that $6 trillion is lost to social exclusion of persons with disabilities. I didn't say $6 billion. Oh. $6 trillion is lost annually.
Dollars.
Yes, to the
Annually,
social
6 trillion.
exclusion. Six
Mm,
trillion.
mm.
And then the World Bank also went ahead to say that we could increase our economic GDP by 3 to 8% just by including persons with disabilities in our social, educational, economic, our facilities, etc. That's staggering, if you'd ask me. And before we come to employment and economic development, we know that the number one index of every developed society is what? Is education. So when you educate your populace, development is a sure thing in view. So how do we now make sure that persons with disabilities get the education that is necessary for them to be integrated into the society? Is by granting access to education. We keep preaching access, inclusive education is meeting persons with disabilities or children with disabilities at the point of their need. It's not just allowing them to come to school as a form of tokenism. Okay, all children with disabilities, you're here. No, how are you meeting them? How are you ensuring that you have braille? How are you ensuring that you have facilities that can enhance their education? How are you ensuring that the deaf blind have tactiles and, every tool that they need to learn effectively and contribute to the larger society? It is important because when we educate children with disabilities, we are building them to be major contributors and actors, in the larger um, society. Right. Now, let's go back to how we can tap into the economic potentials of persons with disability. I just spoke about access to education. Access is actually very important. You have to enable access for persons with disabilities if you wish for them to contribute. How do you enable access? Access to not just infrastructures. I usually categorize them in two major divisions or categories. The first is infrastructural access, and that of course means physical buildings, having to make modifications here and there. And thankfully we have a Disability Act now that says that buildings should be modified to ensure accessibility for persons who have mobility impairment, but not just that, even visual impairment, because there are many elevators now that a blind person cannot operate. So all of these infrastructural adjustments and modifications are important in enabling access for persons with disabilities to contribute economically. But then again, for me, what is more important is the systemic access. I beg your pardon. What do I mean by systemic access? Systemic access is granting access to information. Right. So, like you said, that I taught you, persons with disabilities are not a homogeneous group. So that means that it doesn't mean that it's only those that are on the wheelchair that belong to the disability community. We have different clusters. We have people who have visual impairment, like myself. We have people who are hard of hearing or have hearing impairments. We have people who have intellectual disabilities, people, who have autism, you know, and all that. We have people with mental disabilities. You understand? They vary. They're a lot. So you can't now say, oh, okay, so I'm going to grant access, and then all you're doing is to just adjust your buildings and create ramps, and all of that so that wheelchairs can pass. What about the system? Is the system accessible? Can a deaf person walk into your organization and feel included and feel among and have a sense of belonging? Are your information, is there access to information? Are the information that you are providing in your organization, even as a nation, are they accessible to the deaf? Are you putting subtitles? Are you putting captionings? You understand? Are you providing, tools that can enable people who are visually impaired to participate, to feel along, to know what you're putting out, your context, and all of that? That's what we mean by enabling access. Another thing is cultural transformation. This one is very important. A lot of people call it attitudinal barriers. What does it simply mean? It means that there is already a bias towards persons with disabilities by many people. Take it or leave it. When they see person, if I ask you now, define disability, you will tell me, you probably tell me someone who can't see, someone who can't talk, who can't speak, someone who can't hear, someone who can't walk, someone who can't. Do you understand? So there's a lot of cannots when you're defining disability. From the general perspective, that's the stereotype. And because of that cannotness, quote and unquote, do you understand? Then a lot of people now feel, okay, if they cannot, then we should not give them the opportunity. That's stereotyping because you believe that disability is equal to inability, which is not so. You understand? So that's the attitudinal barrier. And because of that, you now begin to exclude persons with disabilities because you don't see them as people who can contribute. Rather, you see them as people who continue to take and take and take from you, from the government, from everybody. And that's the charity model that we are dismissing in today's world. Right. And then the last one, of course, is institutionalization processes. What does this mean?
Okay. The one
Yes.
you call systemic access,
No,
you
no,
have talked
no.
about the infrastructure. Okay.
This is a
So that
different
I can be
one.
sure that I'm following you. Okay.
Oh yes, oh yes. So there is normally a misconception, right, about the skills and the scope of talents of persons with disabilities vis-a-vis the cost of establishing, an inclusive work environment. Do you understand? So enabling access actually makes
Yeah.
for opportunity for meaningful participation, and an inclusive culture, brings about contribution for persons with disability in the workforce. This just means, of course, that you have to understand, a lot of employers will tell you, okay, I want to take in someone with disability, but do I have to now break my walls? Do I now, have to start getting elevators? I think it's expensive. I think it's, they begin to calculate the cost of reasonable accommodation that the law says you must provide. However, do you know, in a recent research that was conducted in 2021 by one Thomas Eichner, he said that it was discovered that persons with disabilities have enormous potentials in the workplaces. Number one, they are very loyal and consistent with the productivity of their work. Oh, yes, he said so. He said, number two, that their performance is always optimum. Number three, they do not have usually they don't fight with distractions. They are very focused, right? So when you consider a lot of all of these benefits vis-a-vis the cost that you as an employer you are contemplating, you see that you have even more to gain, right, than to lose. So let's look at this. What do we lose by excluding persons with disabilities from economic growth and opportunities? Do you have any questions? Do you, because I want this to be as interactive as possible.
Same with me. Same with me. It's just like it looks
Yeah.
like you are still giving us the preambles. You're going. You're setting the pace with all the data you're sharing with us, and I think we
I've
can go on
actually
for now.
already started talking.
Yes, 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 yes. You have said much. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so what do we lose by excluding persons with disabilities? Of course, we all know about labor migration, which is currently happening now in Nigeria. Many companies, do you know, as a human resource practitioner, I can give you this for free. Many companies spend so much in recruitment processes every now and then. Why? Because a lot of employees are leaving to greener pastures, right? We, of course, know about the Japa syndrome now. Everybody is Japaing. But do you know it was
Everybody.
discovered? Oh, yes, it was
Mhm.
discovered that the number of people Japaing from the disability community is way, way, way minimal than those without disabilities. What does this mean? This just simply means that if you have persons with disabilities in your workspace, right, you are already assured 40%. That's what he said. 40% increase, 40% confidence boost that it gives the employers, makes them know that, okay, if everybody is going to go, at least we still have these people. And it doesn't mean that we are having them as a matter of tokenism, like I always say. It means that they can also contribute, right? So you have their loyalty, which is a big plus. Another thing is, in a report that was conducted by a group of people that they call Accenture, right? They said that they discovered that companies that have disability confidence, I mean, have a double net income, right? And a 28% increase in revenue, and a 30% increase in profit margin than companies without disability confidence. Maybe I need to
Why?
explain
What
what
is so?
disability
Yes, you need
confidence
to
means.
explain. Yes, you need to explain this and tell us why.
Disability confidence, first of all, means that you are not afraid to employ people with disabilities, right? So you're not shaking. When
Okay.
you're putting
Okay.
out your vacancies, when you're
Oh,
putting out you're opening up opportunities. You're also saying there that, okay, as a person with disability, please do not be discouraged to apply. You understand? Our organization,
okay.
operates, equal opportunities, and we prioritize equity so everybody can apply. That's what we mean by disability confidence. But then there are some organizations that are quite shy, or not so proud, of employing persons with disabilities, and matter of fact, see them as, persons that we should probably just have behind the scenes as, a form of CSR, corporate social responsibility. Let's just have them, but you see, when they are presenting, having programs, designing programs, you don't really see the people with disabilities from their company coming out representing. You understand? We term those people as people who do not have, or companies rather, who do not have disability confidence. I heard of a company that in Kenya, somewhere in Kenya, that had something, they had an operation, and they called it inclusive chain. So they had persons with disabilities as farmers who were producing um crops, and some raw materials for them, and they were using it, do you understand, to produce rubber and other things in the society. And because
Okay.
of that inclusion, they did not just have an increase in their margin, in their profit margin. They had the buying of international organizations. Why? Because they looked at them as, this is a company that, although they are profit oriented, they also have, a reach out, to the marginalized community, and they enable them to participate. Do you understand? So because of that, they won the confidence of people, of organizations, of investors, and so of course their profit margin had to increase. So this is what we lose
Hmm.
out when we do not bring persons with. And you should also know, persons with disabilities, most of the time, we talk about reasonable accommodation. Reasonable accommodation simply means providing whatever it would require for that person with disability to be able to function. I already spoke about infrastructural adjustments, systemic adjustments, but then sometimes you also need
Yeah.
them to have an aid with them, right? So let's say you want to travel, you're having a retreat, whatever. They need an aid to be with them, to help them function. And this is not even a matter of luxury or just wanting to take people around. They need it as a matter of functionality. You understand? So when you have that one person with disability equaling two people in your organization as a business entrepreneur, it means that for each person with disability, you have an additional person that is coming in, that is tapping into your business opportunities, that is consuming your products, that is, engaging with you on a business level. Of course, what does that mean? That just means progress. That means profit, if we're going to speak in economic terms. Right. At this point, I don't know if we have more to say, if we have more questions to ask, I mean,
Ah, ha, 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 ha. Mary, you said
before I
quite
go
a
on.
lot, and I don't know before you go on or you go back. Now, you gave us some very wonderful data.
Yes.
80% of people who have disability are living in developing countries, just like our country, Nigeria. And you said the age gap is from 35 years. And we have many of such
22
persons,
million. 22 million of that
22
80% is
22
between
million
the
of the
age of,
80%.
yes, 35 and below.
And
Yes.
35 and below.
Yes. Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
And this is
Yes.
the most active part of the life of a human being. So if these people are
Exactly.
not so fully employed, they are not in
Mm.
school, they have not trained with any skill. So what happens to them in their old age? So that's
We're
really
losing.
that's yeah, we're losing. We're losing. Then you talked about
Right.
the DEI, the diversity, equity,
Equity and
and
inclusion.
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 Yes. Yes. So
Yes.
you talked about how we can have this in the workplace. So now we have really
Yes.
dealt with employment and everything that has to do with the system and infrastructure. Now, can we talk
Mm.
about persons with disability running their own business outfits? What can you say to
Excellent.
that? Yeah.
Excellent. Matter of fact, when I speak about the corporate engagements, and formal employment, I speak to that as a minute portion of the economic engagement of persons, of most persons with disabilities. If we're going to speak in reality, we'll know that in Nigeria, how many persons with disabilities are opportuned to get an education and then opportuned to have a formal employment. What this goes to say is that persons with disabilities, most persons with disabilities will naturally go into entrepreneurship. And you see them doing that without being, without even having the what's it called? The refination, without refining the business. They just go into it
Yeah.
naturally as a means of what? Surviving.
Survival,
So
survival,
exactly,
yes.
exactly. So you see, a lot of times when you go to the villages, when you go to the grassroots, when you visit these places, you see people on the wheelchair, even some people who can't even afford the wheelchair, who are crawling. You see them on the farms. We have in a project that we did in Kagoro, Kaduna State. We were shocked to see women with disabilities doing most of the farm work there. In fact, at a point, I had to be asking that, is it the farm work that is causing the disability? Are they acquiring it on the farm? Because almost everybody we saw there had one form of disability or the other. You understand? So that's to tell you that already they already tilt towards entrepreneurship. And what are the kind of businesses that persons with disabilities can engage in? Like I said earlier during the introduction, persons with disabilities are not a homogeneous group. So the business that can work for one might not necessarily work for another. Agriculture is a gold mine for persons with disabilities. Why? Because it doesn't take so much. Like I just told you, a lot of them are already going into it without even being guided, without going to have an education on agroeconomics and all of those things. You already see them doing simple things like planting and harvesting and selling it out. You understand? And for that one, almost every kind of disability can engage in that if you look at it. And then we also have persons with disabilities in the mining sector. During my program, my engagement with the ILO, when we're doing the Excel Africa project, I was amazed to discover that even in the mining sector, we had women with disabilities who were engaged in mining. Oh, yes, engaged in mining. And these are businesses they're setting up by themselves. But unfortunately, either because they don't know the value of what they're mining, or because their employers or whoever they're working for or partnering with as a business, as a form of discrimination or something, they don't get as much or as much as they deserve. You understand? But if you talk about going into the business, oh, yes, they do go into the business. Another thing is card selling. In fact, these days, almost every Saturday, I get messages on my phone. Oh, I'm selling this recharge card. Click this link, reach out to me from the disability community. Before, you would see people on a wheelchair holding this the hardware cards in front of offices and all that. But now technology is a game changer. And because technology is a game changer, there are a lot of better ways to innovate entrepreneurship. So you see them engaging online and telling you, "Oh, I can do this. I can do the." A lot sometimes they just add you to their WhatsApp group and say, "Okay, I sell Adure. Reach out to me." Just leveraging technology to sell their businesses. You understand? And they're doing absolutely well in it. And do you know the kind of contribution they're making? What about those in the media? Talk about someone like Cobams. He's one of the best producers in Nigeria. Do you know the kind of GDP that he'll be generating? Do you understand? Talk about many other people in diverse. We have people who make shoes, shoemaking, soap making, all sort of skills that they're getting involved with, and they're generating revenue in their different capacities. So I mean, these are just some of many other opportunities for entrepreneurs with disabilities that we need to begin to look into and ensure that we help them in whatever way that we can to enable them contribute meaningfully to the society and ultimately to the economic growth of our nation.
This. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Now, I like the very loud example of Cobams that you have brought in to see that persons with disability have a lot to contribute and to add to our GDP and to add to the face of our nation. Now, there's a question in the chat. It says, what type of agriculture can persons with disability engage in? And what are the steps to get them started? For example, persons with disability are watching us now, those who have not even been opportuned to even know that they can contribute. You mentioned that you went to Kaduna and you found a lot of them in the farms. So this person is asking now, what type of agriculture? Because in agriculture we have the agricultural value chain. A lot is in agriculture, not just the planting. There's a lot involved in agricultural value chain. So what is it that they can engage in, and what are the steps to get them started?
Okay. Very good. When you talk about agriculture, just like you rightly said, agriculture is now very diverse. There's even agrotech that has made life a lot easier. So that you don't have to engage in the mechanical, farming of holding cutlasses and hoes and all of those things. Persons with
Yeah.
disabilities can I'm starting from, the simple ones. Persons with disabilities can plant, they can harvest, they can keep livestock. Oh, yes, they can,
Hmm.
depending on their kind of disability. I personally met one who was keeping what they call it, a herdsman with a disability. He had one arm coming from the north, but then he was a herdsman. You understand? He had a lot of cattle that he was looking after. So they can engage into livestock. I think it has to do with knowing the person's abilities. Is for the person to come out open to themselves and tell themselves what they can do and what they can manage. For instance, someone who um has no limbs, no arms, no legs, well, they could find a way to say, okay, I can still manage this kind of wild, cattle and all that. But I would personally advise, except if they have some kind of system around them, like, help, like, workers and all that. But for them alone to manage that kind of thing I feel like it's going to be a bit challenging. You understand? But if they find a way to surmount that kind of challenge, then of course, why not? Then, like I said earlier, also, even mining is a form of agriculture, depending on what kind of agriculture you're talking about. Because when you talk
Mm-hmm.
about limestone and harvesting all these natural resources, they come under agriculture to a large extent. So that is also something that persons with disabilities can engage in. I talked about agrotech. There's a lot
Yeah.
now going on with technology and how technology is revamping lives and revamping everything. So you can engage in technology as a person with disability so that you don't necessarily have to be doing the hard work. You can be doing the soft work, from the comfort of your house. And that's one of the benefits that we thank COVID for. Because in America, for instance, during the COVID, they discovered that 1.8 million persons with disability got into employment, whether it was through entrepreneurship or formal employment, and that increased their GDP by 28%. Can you beat that? This is
I
America,
can't do
and it was during the
that.
COVID season. And it was
Mm.
because they had to start employing people with disabilities to work remotely from home. So they don't have to come
Mm.
physically. So in the long run, it costs the employer less and it costs the person with disability less, but productivity is more. You understand it? So yeah,
Yeah,
these
I
are
do.
some of the things that persons with disabilities can engage with in the agricultural sector. It's all about innovation, really, and creativity. And then talking about how you can help them start. I
Get
always say
started, yeah.
the first thing is to have an interview with them, not an interrogation, because there's a difference between interrogation and interview.
Can
Yeah,
you
because
just tell us just tell us the difference?
a lot of time when
In case we
people want
are
to,
interrogating them instead of interviewing them.
yes, a lot of time when people want to engage with persons with disability, they come from this interrogating context, or perspective that is very demeaning and almost insulting. You're talking to a person with disability and you're already asking the person questions like the person doesn't even know what they're doing. The person doesn't have a mind of their own. You're almost helping them control. There's this dynamic of control. It's insensitive. For instance, you want to talk to someone with a disability who is on a wheelchair, and you are as tall as Goliath, and you're just standing on top of their head like that and talking to them and looking down like you're looking at the floor. It is so demeaning. It is really demeaning. And these are things that people need to consider. When you start like that, you already start interrogating the person. That's not an interview. If you want to do an interview has to be done in a friendly manner where both parties are beneficiaries. It's not like one person is just there to elicit information and then leave and do whatever the person wants to do. When you interrogate, you leave the person feeling used. But when you interview, you leave the person feeling happy that they have given you information and they have hopes that you and believe that you're going to work with that information to their benefit. If that makes any sense.
It
Yeah.
does
So
a lot.
yeah. Yeah. So you interview them, you ask them what they want to do. Allow them speak. Allow them tell you what they want, how they want to do it. You coming from a place of funding and whatever, you can guide them, but we need to be careful not to guide to the point that we begin to control, because there's a thin line between guiding and control. We want to guide them because we feel we want to help them, and then you now do it to the point that you now control them. You take the entire project away from their hands and they are left confused. And at the end of the day, when you come back, you say, "Oh, you gave them money. You don't know what they did with the money." No, 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 no. You were too strict. Allow them. When you interview them, if they tell you, "Oh, I want to go into agriculture," you can say, "Okay, what kind of agriculture? What do you want to do?" While you're interviewing them, you should have some form of intelligence to be able to know where you need to come in. And then you can guide them. "Oh, I think this is a brilliant idea. You can go through this, you can go through that. I can help you with this." But when you say, "Okay, I'm going to give you 10,000 naira," but then when you move from here to, if you for every 100 meters that you take, you give me account, even your 1 naira, all those very petty things. I'm not saying there's no place for accountability. There should be a place for accountability.
They
But when you're
should
too
be, yeah.
stringent, you stifle, you strangle the creativity and innovation that they have as part of their potentials. So you allow them speak and tell you what they want. You guide them through the process, and then guiding them through the process is not just funding. If you think that they would need help in terms of people, workers, you can also bring people to help them and monitor to make sure that in the process of helping, the PWDs are not being exploited. So I think basically the core is to interview and have a conversation with them on how you can help them before going ahead to determine for yourself what to do and what not.
Hmm, hmm,
Yeah.
hmm. Wow, this has been a very enlightening section for all of us and for anyone who is watching and who is joining us. Not only for the persons with disability, but for the general public. And we are saying that when we engage with persons with disability, we should interview, not interrogate them. Mary has
Mm-hmm.
clearly she has drawn the thin line between interview and interrogation. And I like that very practical example you gave. Someone is on a wheelchair and you are standing right tall above the person and you're asking questions. Already you are intimidating the person,
Yeah.
and you will not get what you want. Okay?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
these are very wonderful tips for all of us, business owners, for everyone in the society. Give them a space to thrive.
To thrive.
Give them
Excellent. Yeah.
yes, and they
Yeah.
will indeed thrive. Mary, I want
Yeah.
to say to you that recently we had a training, and PWDs, we had an inclusive training because our center,
Okay.
Genius Hub, is very inclusive in nature.
Uh-huh.
And we had persons with
Yes.
disability, just like you said, we had those who were physically, those on
Mm-hmm.
the wheelchair. We even had
Mm-hmm.
the hearing impaired, and we had
Mm-hmm.
to give them an interpreter so they could
Mm.
follow the class because they learned bed sheet and duvet making, you
Oh
know.
wow.
And with the aid of technology, I saw that it was a lot easier to communicate with them.
Yes.
Whatever they would
Yes.
not understand in class, they would chat me up. If they're not going
Wow.
to be around, they will chat me up and say, "Oh, I'm taking my daughter somewhere this morning. I will be late for class." Or you see, I did not
You
know they
see
were
that?
that easy to
You
manage. They
see
were quite
you
easy
see
to
that?
manage. So technology
You see?
indeed is a game
Yeah.
changer. And I saw they were excited. They wanted to learn. They
Mm-hmm.
actually wanted to learn.
Mm-hmm.
And we had
Mm-hmm.
machine tabletops that you could give to those who had this physical impediment on their legs and on the wheelchair to
Uh-huh.
use. And that's what they used. And I saw the
Wow.
joy. By the time they
Wow.
graduated, oh, it was like, oh, so we will not be coming here
Oh.
anymore. We will not be
Ah.
coming here anymore. And we said, it's time for you to go and show forth
Yes.
what you will do.
What you have
And so it
learned.
was a project, what you've learned. And so it was a project with GIZ. Luckily, they were giving startup pack so they can
Oh.
begin doing something
Mm.
with what they have learned.
Mm.
So if
Mm.
you really give them a boarding space, I think they can
Mm-hmm.
sprout well. They
I
can
agree.
sprout and sprout well. And that
I
is our
agree.
message. Now we
Yeah.
have some persons with disability. We're about to round up now because our time is fast spent. I told Mary 1 hour, but Mary is so easy to speak with, and we could do this till thy kingdom
Have we
come.
done 1 hour already? Have
I
we
think
done 1 hour?
we've done like 50 minutes or something.
Oh
It's not
wow.
close to that.
Oh
Can you
wow.
imagine that?
Oh
So I
wow.
want to talk
It
about
doesn't feel like
those.
it.
It does not feel like that. We have some persons with disability who I want to
Okay.
say are bitter people. They are
Hmm.
bitter and they are reactive. They react to every situation.
Hmm.
Because of the treatment they have received from the society. So before they come near you, they have already judged you. They, on their
Hmm.
part, are not so open to receive because of what they have been through. So they tend to be aggressive before they understand the situation. One was threatening me the other day. He said, "You know, we now have a disability law. We have a law, and luckily, Edo State has passed the bill into law." And so I asked her, I said, are you threatening me? He got to that extent. I said, "Are you threatening me?" She said, "No, she just wants me to know." So many of them are getting enlightened, and I'm very happy about that. I said, "So are you threatening me?" She said, "No, no, no, no. She just wants me to know that she knows her rights and all that." But I've discovered that there is a section of them that are bitter. And so for some of us who are willing to embrace them, there is that gap. They hold back. So can you tell us how you have been able to grow? Because I know you have grown above this. Can you share with us some perhaps practical lessons that they can benefit from? Hello, Mary's gone. So let's see if she will come back. We have been talking with Mary Omoyeme Victor Magaji, and we've been talking about unlocking the economic
Welcome to
potentials,
Genius
the role
Hub,
of
the
persons with
right
disabilities.
destination for human capacity development, skills acquisition, and empowerment. Genius Hub is a human capital development organization with offices across Nigeria and Africa, and with a strong presence in Lagos, Kano, Edo, and Rwanda. With a vision to improve lives and empower knowledge, Genius Hub prides itself in providing services and training to over 17,000 persons in over 49 TVET entrepreneurship, employability, and digital skills such as basic literacy skills, graphics design, website development, digital marketing, filmmaking, and many more. Genius Hub is committed to promoting MSME growth and visibility through incubation, acceleration, startup development services, as well as tech-driven interventions, including training and capacity building in digital marketing, basic digital literacy, product photography, social media marketing, financial management, search engine optimization, and more. Through NYTV, Genius Hub reaches out to train aspiring creatives in the areas of photography, cinematography, editing, lighting, and many more.
So this is where we are rounding up today. I think our guest had some glitch with her network that logged her out. And so we have been able to establish that persons with disability can add a lot of value to our economy, to our GDP, and that if we grant them access to education, we practice. Oh, she's back. Oh, Mary is back. This is good.
I don't know what
I
happened.
was
I thought it was you. I thought it was you.
no.
I kept speaking.
Oh
And then here
no.
I
Okay.
went off.
So let's go back to that
Uh,
question so that we just use it to wrap. I was asking you that some persons with
yeah.
disability are quite bitter persons. Even when you open
Mm,
your arms, they don't give you that
mm,
opportunity to embrace them. Not
mm,
all persons are like you. And
mm,
I have another person with disability, and Jugo, she's their head here. She's very warm and traveling all around warm. I've always known her to be like that, but not all of them are like that. Can you share with us some practical examples and tips that can help them embrace at least those who are embracing them and not push people away?
okay. Um, Thank you very much for that. I want you to know that at the core of every reaction is deprivation, right? So, for everyone who reacts to something is as a result of what they feel they were deprived of. A lot of times, persons with disabilities, especially in our climes, are deprived of love, right? Are deprived of good people, honest people. There are people that even their family members have disappointed them. So they struggle with trust. So you see that a lot of persons with disabilities. Are you there? Oh, hello.
I'm right here. I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Hey,
At the
again.
core of every reaction is
Oh,
deprivation. I heard you loud and clear. I am here with you, Mary. So
okay,
go
okay.
on.
All right, great. Okay. So, yeah, so you see that even family members have let them down. So you see them struggling with trust issues. Even I, as a person with disability, I go through it in the hands of my fellow PWDs. I go through it in their hands because they feel, oh, you probably, I don't know, advantage of them and all that. What you need to do, first of all, on the side of the understanding of the situation, understanding of the peculiarity of their situation, try to put yourself in their shoes. You
Yeah.
understand? Some of them didn't come from supportive families, like I said
Yeah.
earlier on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they naturally are hostile.
Yeah.
And that hostility is a reaction to the hostility that they have felt because they've been deprived of love, you
For
know.
a long
So
time.
you need to
Yeah.
be for a long time. So you need to
Yeah.
be understanding. When you come with that understanding and they see through and they see that they might not respond positively
Yeah.
immediately because
Yeah.
they need you to prove that you are not like every other person.
You're
You
real.
understand?
Yeah.
Um, exactly. So you need to
And
be
you can
understanding
stand the
and
test of
patient.
time.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So you need to be
Mm-hmm.
understanding and patient, and just let time tell that you are different and you're true and you're truly offering them this warmth. And, it's with all
Mm-hmm.
sincerity. There are no ulterior motives and, all of
Mm,
that.
mm,
And with
mm.
time, when they see it, every human being would respond to love. Of course, there's a difference between reaction and response. Everybody will respond to love and everybody will react to deprivation. You understand? So when they see your genuineness, eventually they will respond. Now, on the part of PWDs, I know that we face a lot of negativity from society. The society is still trying to grapple with the complexities of our peculiarities and demands. But that's still no excuse for us not to live a happy life. Happiness, joy are things that come from within. They shouldn't be
Yeah,
influenced by anything or anyone.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah. So I think when we begin to look at things from a different angle, when we begin to appreciate life and be content, we will find a lot to be happy about. And when we are happy, it will be difficult for us to, be bitter against people and be resentful. And
yeah.
for us, again, as persons with disabilities, one thing that I particularly practice is forgiveness. I
Mm.
believe that if we learn to forgive people and forgive even ourselves for our mistakes, because sometimes as persons with disabilities we make mistakes and we beat ourselves over the mistakes, for too long. It's okay to make mistakes. You move on. You won't be the first and you won't be the last. So you get into this relationship and this guy breaks your heart, and then you think it's because you have a disability. Not necessarily. Guys break people's hearts, whether they have a disability or they don't have a
Ability or
disability. It's
not.
just life.
Exactly.
It's just life.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, for us as persons with disabilities, I think we should learn to stop taking things too personally and
Mm-hmm.
just live, just be happy, just be happy. One of my mentors says that our happy right is a fundamental right. You have a right to be happy, and you should not let anyone or any circumstance take that from you.
A happy right is a fundamental human right.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
And you owe that to yourself first and
right.
foremost. We have
Yeah,
talked about what the government can do, what the society can do, what
yeah,
infrastructure what systems can do. But I like
yeah,
this last point we are wrapping with something you can do for yourself that you
yeah.
owe to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
First and
Mm-hmm.
foremost, you owe it to yourself. A
Right.
happy right is a fundamental, I'm trying to write that down immediately, is a fundamental human right. I've written so much today, Mary, you won't believe it.
Oh, wow.
So next time
Thank
we're
you.
engaging, I'm going to be telling you,
Thank
you
you.
taught me this, you taught me this, you taught me this, you
Thank
taught me
you.
this.
And I thought you would say that because I even forgot about this homogeneous one you reminded me about.
No, 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 no. I never forgot that. So we have to use a fundamental human right. And you actually owe it to yourself. Come on.
Yes.
Oh, a guy
Yeah.
just treated me shabbily and broke my heart because I'm person living. No, they do that even to persons
No.
who are not living with
Yeah.
disability.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
life. Can we just
Yeah.
move on from there?
Yeah.
Can we
They
move on
treat
from
they treat they treat persons with disabilities and they treat persons without disabilities. It's just
there?
life.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
just
like,
life. It's just life.
mm-hmm.
So, Mary, we can't thank you enough for this time. You see the richness of this our conversation. That's why we had all those glitches yesterday. They didn't want us to have this rich
I'm so
conversation.
sorry. I
But you
need to
see, we
apologize for that
conquered.
yesterday, boss.
But you see
I'm
that we
so
conquered.
sorry.
We insisted and
Yes,
we conquered.
yes,
So this is
yes,
like what we are saying to
absolutely.
persons with disability. Oh, yesterday it didn't work.
Right.
It's not the end of life. We
Yeah,
rescheduled. And
yeah,
today we had,
yeah.
yes, we had a very beautiful session. There were things beyond your control on your own side, beyond your control. And we
Mm-hmm.
saw that and we could bear with you. And that's
Yeah,
what we owe to persons with disability. We bear with each other, with
right.
everyone,
Yeah.
everyone. So
Mm.
for rap, I don't know. For rap, I just want you to tell us again. That's data you gave us about how persons with disability can contribute. That example you gave us in is it Kenya?
Mm.
That's Kenyan example.
In
Yes, yes,
Kenya. Yes,
yeah, in Kenya.
yes.
So that
In fact,
in
I have
Nigeria,
another one that I even wanted to talk about.
no, please just do
Because
that
we
for
have
us.
talked about persons with disabilities as employees, we've talked about persons with disabilities as entrepreneurs, we've
Yeah,
talked about, access to education, which is the
sure.
basis for,
Yeah,
productivity and all that.
yeah.
But then we've not really talked about persons with disabilities as consumers,
Okay,
right?
okay.
So, do you know that one out of every five Africans is a Nigerian? And then the UK, yeah, there was really, I'm serious. There was a research that was conducted by the UK on the algorithm of 100 million adult customers in
Mm,
Nigeria. Do you know
mm.
what statistics revealed? Statistics revealed
No.
that 10% of that 100 million Nigerian adult customers will likely have one form of physical or mobility impairment or the other.
Mm, mm,
And then they found out that 3% of that 100 million would likely have one form of visual impairment or the other.
mm,
Then they
mm,
found out that 4% of that 100 million would likely have a form of hearing impairment or the other. And
mm,
then they found out that there were many more spectrums of disabilities in different
mm,
percentages like that. Now let's bring this home. If you have 100 million, 10% of 100 million is 10 million. Now imagine our
mm,
banks in Nigeria.
mhm.
Our banks in Nigeria, most of them do not have accessibility for those on wheelchairs. My boss, Mrs. Lois out, I remember her telling me a story of how many times she was embarrassed in front of one bank like that. In fact, when she was sitting down during that COVID time, when they started relieving us of the sit at home, this thing, so she said there was a
Yeah.
particular time she was about to go into the bank, and then she was sitting outside because, of course, her wheelchair couldn't go in. And then she had to send somebody inside so they could call a customer care representative to meet her outside. While she was outside, she realized that there was this lady that was having a struggle with the security. And then she found out that it was because of, a nose mask. She didn't have a nose mask. So she was calling the lady, calling her, signaling to her to come. And she was, because she had a pack of nose masks with her. So she was
Yeah.
signaling the lady to come so she could give her a nose mask. Do you know the lady left that line, came to Madame Lois, and then
Mm,
gave her 200 naira, just threw 200 naira on her laps. And she was like,
mm.
what? Are you kidding me? I'm calling you to give you a nose
To come
mask
and
because
take. Yeah.
because I realized that you were being embarrassed and you're throwing 200 naira at me. That's to tell you the kind of stereotype. Now, do you know what that
Mm,
means? The implication of
mm,
that means 10 million of people like Madame Lois will probably not go to the bank, and then the bank will be losing 10 million potential customers because they cannot
mm,
access. Now we have
mm,
online businesses. How many of these online businesses, this shopping? I like to shop. I shop a lot, but a lot of these online shopping platforms are not even accessible to screen readers that I use. Do you understand? So I always have to have an aid to help me, to do this shopping while I make my choices. What this means is
mhm,
that these online platforms can potentially lose 3 million customers Why? Because they refuse to make their system inclusive. What about the media and advertisements? A lot of times they don't have captioning, they don't have subtitles, and then they cannot carry our deaf people along. What does that mean? It means that they are losing potential 4 million customers. I could go on and on and on and on to tell you about the consequences of leaving people with disabilities out of economic development, whether by production, whether by being employees, or whether by being consumers or even entrepreneurs themselves. I like to say, and this will be my last statement, we think about inclusion as expensive. Inclusion might be expensive, but I like to say that exclusion is extravagant. Oh, yes, it
Oh,
is.
inclusion. We like to think of inclusion as expensive, but exclusion is extravagant. Just like the
Excellent.
saying, if you think education is expensive, then ignorance, try ignorance.
Exactly.
So, inclusion, if you think of inclusion as expensive, then exclusion is
Extravagant.
extravagant. I think I can title that and put your name right on it.
Yeah. Inclusion may be expensive,
Mary,
but
Mary,
exclusion is extravagant.
Omoyeme gbe.
Thank you so
Wonderful
much,
interactive
Obehi.
session we have had with you today,
As
Mary, and I
always,
cannot.
Obehi. As always, with
Yeah,
you. Yes.
yes. Inclusion may be expensive. Good to have you here today. Oh, this is a beautiful one we have had, and I want to encourage all of us to think of persons with disability as our employees, as entrepreneurs, and now we have talked about them as consumers. So if you have goods, you are marketing your goods. Have you made it accessible to PWDs? If not, you're losing out. She gave us, I've
Mhm.
typed out all those data, those percentages you gave us: 4%, 3%, and the other rounds of percentage. So if you have a business and you don't put subtitles, you're doing your adverts, you just say they are a minimal group. Oh, you are definitely wrong. You
Losing.
are
Right.
losing out. You are losing out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
losing out. So, Mary, we have to end now. I think we have done like 1 hour. If we have not even done 1 hour, 15 minutes, if not much more than 1 hour,
Then
17
that's not
minutes.
my fault. The network took me out.
Yeah, but it's a good one. No, no, I'm happy to say that it was a fruitful one. We cannot even,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sweating, and we could even go on and on and on and on and on. And you can be sure that we'll come knocking again so that we have another part of this.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much. And I want to say thank you to
Thank
your
you.
husband
Yeah.
for the
Thank
support,
you.
your soulmates, for
Yes.
everything, and for those who support you, who have supported you to be on this program. We want to say thank you to all the behind the scene Genius Hub and media crew who are working behind the scene to make this very fruitful. So until we'll come your way next week with another webinar series, today we had Mary talking about unlocking the potentials in persons with disability, and we had such a fruitful and extensive discussion. And she wrapped by saying that if you are thinking of inclusion as expensive, then exclusion is extravagant. Mary
Yeah.
Omoyeme Victor. Ma, thank you so much. Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
So from all
Thank
of
you.
us here at Genius Hub, I am signing out. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you, Behi.
You brought your face nearer. That is
Yes.
Mary for you. Beautiful in black, beautiful in white, beautiful in fuchsia pink, beautiful
Thank
in
you.
whatever color. That's your fuchsia pink.
You're making me so shy.
Thank
Making
you
me
so
so,
much,
so
Mary.
shy.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Bye.
God bless you. Bye bye. Yeah.
Bye.